An estimated 3 to 4 million American women are battered each year by their husbands or partners. The Federal Bureau of Investigation reports that 30% of all female homicides are committed by husbands or boyfriends. In every situation, there are family members, friends, neighbors, criminal justice people reluctant to intervene in what is seen as a private matter. And sisters, mothers, daughters, you will meet the families of 3 women killed in violent relationships. The tape commemorates their lives and gives their families the chance to speak out against the violence.
From her window she stares at the edge of despair, with her chin barely reaching the sill. As she kneels in the dark, she can't cover the marks.
Since I was so much younger, she had to put up with me a lot. She really made me feel special. She took me places. She did things with me. Even when she was in college, I was probably about 6th, 7th grade, and she took me to the beach with all her older friends. She included me in a lot of things. It's amazing how close I am with her friends now because she included me so much in everything. She was really fun. She did things for me. I remember when I was 6, she did a puppet show for me. She took me to the movies. She just did a lot of things with me. She's very outgoing, very funny, great storyteller. Sharing a room with my sister was a complete opposite because she was very neat, obsessively neat. Everything was perfect in drawers, in closets. Everything meticulously folded, perfect. And then my side of the room, and obviously I was younger, so I had like Donny Osmond posters on the walls, and that used to just drive her crazy because that was like unacceptable. There was tape, and she didn't like that at all. Luckily, we had a pretty big room. She's just a really bubbly person. I mean, if you could, any story, I mean, I know this is an odd one, but she went to have her gums scraped at the dentist, and the way she told me about this, it was like you would never go have that done. You'd rather have your teeth fall out. I mean, she had me laughing so hard just about something like that. She'd describe it, every inch of it. And even when she had her first child, I remember going to the hospital, and I was 19 or 20, I don't remember, but I knew nothing about having children. And by the time I left there, I never wanted to have one because she told me everything. I just remember going, oh no. She loved to read. It's like now that people have told me a lot of things, I don't really ever paid attention to her reading that much, but there's books everywhere. She particularly liked mythology and Shakespeare. I think she loved poetry. Poetry was her favorite.
Roberta was a little bit of a tomboy when she was younger, and she had this ability of being double-jointed, and she was always doing like crazy acrobatics and wanting me to do tricks with her, and I wasn't athletic at all, so it was always pretty funny doing those things with her. And we used to put on shows for our grandparents. We were very close to my mother's mother and father, who were born in Scotland, had the Scottish accents, and our Scottish heritage was very much a part of our life. There was 3 years difference between Roberta and I, and then I have a younger brother, Ross, who's 9 years younger, and we used to do some crazy things with Ross, get him dressed up like a girl, and he tells me about all these things now, how we scarred him emotionally with all the crazy things that we used to do to him. We especially looked forward every year. We had a family vacation to Hampton Beach. We saved our pennies and took a walk up to the arcade every night. That was our big treat. And those are some of the really happy memories I have of when we were growing up.
Beth really liked unicorns. She liked to read as a kid. She read all the time. Anything she could find, she read. She was just a hard-working student. Even her early years. Growing up, she spent a lot of time in the yard because we're home buddies. We have a pool in the backyard, and she and a lot of the kids from the neighborhood would swim in the pool, play around the yard, and do usual kid things. Later on, she started collecting unicorns. She had unicorn shirts, unicorn clock, glass figurines, anything that had to do with unicorns she tried to collect. She really, really liked unicorns. Kelly being the youngest, Beth spent an awful lot of time working with her on schoolwork, coloring, playing, things like that. Almost as though she was babysitting Kelly. She'd really tried to take care of her.
The most I can remember from her being in high school, she was, very popular. She had lots of friends. Again, a lot of friends that I knew because she, would bring them to the house and I would do things with them, and she would include me sometimes. And a lot of them she's still friends with, up until today she was still friends with a lot of them. She was the head color guard, which she led the band. She got to wear the white uniform instead of like the same as everybody else. That's what I remember. And she got voted the most beautiful in class. And she also, they had Miss Salem High School, and she was a runner-up. I remember her being in the newspaper. So she was involved in lots of different activities, it seemed like to me. And that was pretty much when there was a lot going on in the 60s. She liked the Beatles. I always remember playing her Beatles albums, and she had the magazines. She had all kinds of, I don't know who else, I don't know what was popular back then, but I used to listen to a lot of her albums, like Dave Clark 5 and Ricky Nelson. Like, I used to know a lot of music that none of my other friends knew. I used to almost make fun of her because she was there was such a gap between us, and I would tease her for what music that she liked. And she just recently, would play Les Miserables. She had this tape that I think she taped over it, and it was just horrible, and she put it in this awful tape deck, and it would sound terrible, but she had it blasted. It's like, can't you just buy a nice tape? But she's like, this is fine, this is fine. She went to Plymouth State College, and we would go visit her quite often. Her and I think the total was 13 girls started their own sorority. It was the original sorority at Plymouth State College called XAZ. And I don't know what it stands for now. I think Chi Alpha Zeta or something. I think I even remember that. And they lived in this really neat house. And it was, I remember going to visit her there quite often. And there's like 3 girls that were in her sorority that I'm still very close with right now. They've kept in close contact with me. They were still close with Helen. And they, still come and see the kids.
Roberta read a lot and was always interested in Nancy Drew and going to the library, and a very avid reader, which she continued to be. We came from a rather strict family, and our activities were planned activities. We used to go to the Frost Arena ice skating. There'd be dances at school, things like that. We were very much home-oriented, did a lot of things at home. The youth group at church. We belonged to a Beatles fan club. So I guess it was pretty much the Beatles back in those days. Roberta would spend hours doing her acrobatics, and that's one of the things that really sticks out in my mind. And she'd be the first one that would be able to get up on the skis. She was very adventurous, and I could never do any of those things. So she always I was the older sister, but she sort of lauded all that over on me. She got married young, and she got married at 19, and so she, didn't have a lot of boyfriends, but she did go to proms and things like that. When I think about it now, Roberta was very involved in the Rainbow Girls and became worthy advisor of the group in Lawrence. And I think that a lot of our growing up was like service to others.
Being a parent, you really don't know what your child is like at school because it's a different persona. At home, Beth acted really, really good. She was a phenomenal child growing up. She was very well behaved. All we know about is her grades at school, and she had really good grades, but there came a time once when her grades were slipping, and we asked her about those, and she said that some of her peers at school were calling her the brain, and she was embarrassed by that because she was getting good grades. And she really had a lot of problems with that pressure from her fellow students. She almost felt embarrassed. Actually, she probably felt embarrassed because of the grades she was getting. She didn't work. She was a cheerleader. She really enjoyed that because she looked up to Dawn so much that she wanted to be like Dawn because Dawn is so easygoing, so well-liked, has such a large group of friends that I think Beth was very envious of her. And she really wanted to follow in Dawn's footsteps and become somebody like Dawn. She actually wrote Dawn a letter telling her that, and it was a very emotional letter, looking back at it now.
We liked the same things. We listened to Madonna, and we listened to Mariah Carey and Whitney Houston. A lot of the hip-hop. We used to sit outside during the summers and listen to oldies with Mom and play cards. So we pretty much listened to everything except for heavy metal.
Most of the time she was good at chores. I've told a story before about Beth, that Beth was such a well-behaved child. The only time that I ever got upset with her, really upset with her, was she was supposed to clean the bathroom. And I had come home from work and she hadn't. And what happened was I yelled at her. Just because I yelled at her, she ran into her bedroom and cried because her father yelled at her. Because she'd never been yelled at like that before. Because she was so well behaved.
Helen, as far as chores, I mean, she was the neatest person. Nothing was ever out of place. Nothing was ever, unorganized. And even a joke we used to have, she had the cleanest windows of anybody I've ever seen in my. I've never gone to ever went to her house where her windows weren't perfectly clean. You know, some people clean them twice a year. Me, I don't clean them ever. And I would go to her house, and she'd be in the kitchen, and I just put my face all over her window, made it really messy, and she'd look at me right away. She'd go get the Windex out of her drawer with the thing like a joke, you know, and she'd clean it as soon as I would come in the door. So it's like every single time I would do the same thing. I would just dirty her window on purpose because it was always so clean. It was incredible. Her oven. I mean, you never see a dirty oven or everything was perfect. With her children, she was a great mother. She was fun with, she did lots of fun things with them. She liked taking them places that were not only just for fun, but she liked to try and do educational things with them, take them to museums, and try and get them interested in some of the things she was interested in. And she did. I mean, they are interested in things like that still today. They like doing, going anywhere. I mean, they just love to do things, and Helen did too. And her students adored my sister, even from when I was there, because Helen was a teacher at the high school when I went to school there. And she originally started student teaching like my freshman year in high school. And at the time, she seemed so much older than me, because she was teaching there. But she really wasn't. And I remember all at first the boys, because she was so pretty, and she had the really long hair. And I remember everyone going, that's your sister, she's a teacher here. And she had a great rapport with the kids. You know, they, to this day, I've had a lot of people come up to me and just say that she was their inspiration, that, you know, she got them so involved in liking English and writing and doing plays, and she seemed to have affected a lot of the students. A lot of them even kept in touch with us. I've, you know, been kind of close with a couple of the students the year that everything happened, and they wrote us beautiful poems and letters, and we didn't even know to the extent. I mean, they, you know, she was taught there for 20 years, so there was such an outpouring of students from 20 years ago till now that wrote to us and told us stories, and so it was nice to see how much she was appreciated, because I don't think she knew how appreciated she was.
Wonderful mother, very concerned about the kids, always trying to do extra for them. Roberta ended up becoming a nurse, and I think that sort of our upbringing, my mother had gone to nursing school, didn't end up completing it, but I think that nursing background was in all of us, and I think that nursing was very much a part of Roberta's personality. Roberta went to a vocational school in West Andover for a postgraduate course, and she became a licensed practical nurse and worked at the Woodmill Nursing Home in Lawrence for 15 years. And in January of 1991, she was awarded the Best of the Best award, which meant that she was the Employee for the Year. That honor really meant a lot to her, and she was very proud of that. And I think that's a lovely honor, to be involved with a group of people, a large group of people, and to be chosen the best of the best. You know, it was a nice honor.
Oh yeah, originally she wanted to be a veterinarian, but what happened was at that time in her life, one of our dogs had to be put to sleep, and it was so hard for her that she decided that she didn't want to be a veterinarian, because she certainly couldn't put other dogs to sleep, even if she didn't know them. You know, she was so sensitive to that. So then she started talking about being a lawyer. She was a very caring person. She cared about other people's feelings. I think she realized how she felt when she was ridiculed by kids. Beth didn't think she was nice looking. She really felt like she was an ugly duckling. And so she had real strong feelings about, not strong feelings, but she felt strongly about making sure that she was good to other people.
She had a lot of friends. She got along very well with other people. We were very close in age, so we hung out a lot together. And we were on the cheering team together. So we did a lot of, outside of school, we did a lot of things with the other cheerleaders. Went to dances, slept over at each other's houses, had pizza parties, things like that.
Just in a few words. Too short.
This has happened before, gone from battle to war, that she loses before.
I would say honesty. I would say loyalty. And I would say lovable.
When his temper explodes, she's the one who pays. She pays with her skin.
She was adventurous, but she was shy.
Morning, shed your light like a
Kind, fun, and special.
Unfortunately, the difference between us and some other cases similar to ours is we never had any inkling at all that anything bad was happening. But looking back now, there were many times when Baldwin was in our house and I'd come home from work and I would say hi to him and he would look down and he would kind of mumble hello or whatever. And I'm not saying a quiet, shy person is a murderer, but should have realized that there was something there, and it's actually bothered me for years that I wish I had seen something ahead of time so that we could have stopped this. Beth wasn't beaten up. She didn't come home with black eyes. There were no telltale signs.
Well, he did act violently in the house one time that I can remember. We were, a friend and I and Beth were sitting at this table, and we had called a friend to see what was going on, and he wanted to talk to the person on the phone, and we wouldn't give him the phone. He started swearing and was going to hit us with an umbrella, and so we didn't think anything of it because people act out like that sometimes. We didn't realize how serious it was.
We didn't have a clue. We really wish there was something we could tell people, we could warn people about. But Beth didn't know that there was violence there. We wish we could give people a warning, but we can't.
Well, we've never been in a situation like that, so I really didn't think anything of it. I didn't think anything was going to happen.
This was not a drug addict. This was not an alcoholic. This was someone that wanted his own way, and he didn't get his way, and he went into a rage and did the worst thing you can do to anybody.
I would look out. I do look out for things like that now. And I try to stay away from situations like that.
I mean, you just assume things are fine unless someone tells you they're not, you know. Everybody's involved in their own life. I mean, we were all very close. We were all together. There's no way that we would have ever thought this is what was going to happen. Everybody believed in him. People took it for granted that, you know, he was telling the truth, and he wasn't. And he had, I mean, if we could have known the truth back then, I think it would have changed a lot of the circumstances of what came in the future. And there were other signs that we didn't know about, so there was a lot of hidden truth that never came out. You can't know. I mean, you just can't know that that's what would happen. So you think there's plenty of time where maybe there isn't.
Roberta was close to the boys and was a good mother, and I think she always tried to do extra things for them. And I feel rather badly because I feel that in retrospect her husband tried to diminish her with the boys. I think that Roberta and her husband had problems in their marriage, and it was always made to seem like she was the one that had the problems. You know, she was blamed for a lot of things, and I feel very badly about that. It is a disease of silence, and we were not aware of a lot of the things that were happening in the home, and I was very concerned about the boys and how they would handle this situation and how they would be as they grew up. I can't say that I didn't know that there were problems in my sister's marriage. I did know that. Did I realize the extent? No. I think that there were a few signs. There was one Thanksgiving that she came to the house and she had a blackened eye. You know, we came from a family where it was what happened in the house stayed in the house, and so we didn't, we knew there were problems, but we didn't get into it, and she didn't say anything. And anytime we did try to address anything, she would deny it, or she would stick up for him. And I think that I'd just try to be more in tune to that. And I would also, this year at the walk, the slogan was, "Domestic violence, it is your business." And I think that that is something that I have come to find out, that if you do see something, you can't make a person leave, but you can talk to them about it. You can explain options, you know, to them. You can tell them that you'll be there to help, advise a person to go for counseling and seek the help of a professional. I'm sorry that she went through all the things that she did, and that she had such unhappiness, and that I hope that she's at peace, and I hope that she is with my grandparents, and I hope that we see each other again someday.
We all miss her. We miss her not graduating from high school, not going to college, not having a family, not being able to hold grandkids. She knew how much we loved her. We're the type of family that we tell each other that. You know, we're not ashamed to, well, for example, every night I kiss the girls goodnight still and tell them I love them. And that's what I'd like to tell Beth. I love her.
I think in our circumstances, the best advice that I could give, that I wish I had done for myself, is to ask more questions. If you know something, don't be afraid to just come out and ask and see if there's something you can do to help. Not that it may make any difference, because you never ever expect the outcome to be, this. But I felt like with Helen, she was so closed about things, and even things that I knew about, that I should have just came out and asked instead of waited. I was waiting for her to just tell me at her own time, because I figured it was personal, and she would tell me when she was ready. And maybe I could have given her some confidence into doing things that she would have maybe have done. I don't know if I would have made any difference, but I would have certainly told her that the girls would have been fine without her husband. I think a lot of things that happened, she just kept it together because she thought it would be best for the children. And in looking back, it would have been best for the children just to be with her. And she would have been fine. She could have done everything herself, because there's nothing she couldn't have done. And she probably would have been better off. And I think she thought too much about how they would be and how they would be affected instead of herself.
Some women leave as soon as abuse or violence begins in a relationship. Others hope for change or give in to threats that keep them isolated, think friends and family won't believe that he is abusive, face economic or emotional barriers to leaving, or simply become afraid that leaving will escalate the violence. Most think there will be a right time to end the silence and abuse. Just like their family members, we doubt that Helen, Roberta, or Beth ever imagined her relationship could take her life. If you are aware of abuse in your family, intervene. If you are in an abusive relationship, get help now to end the abuse. Time's up.